Esports Days. I'm going to turn it over to him, and I hope you enjoy. Afterwards, we'll have a chance to eat some more, drink some more, and talk some more, right? I already said, shout out to Avi.
Well, okay, so that blew my entire introduction for the thing because he did it way better than I ever could. But thank you for coming here. So yeah, I'm Dean Elazab. I work as an attorney in the emerging companies and startup space. And before that, and still while I'm doing that, I'm also an esports commentator. So I love this scene with everything, all my being, and so I'm so happy to be here and give all these people a platform to talk to you all. So let's just kick it off really easily. So I'm going to go down the list, and I just want people to briefly introduce themselves, what they work on, why they're passionate about it, and what is something that really jumps out immediately as something you want to tell people about why you're doing this.
Good evening. I'm Adam Boothe. I'm the Esports. Should I just show it?
Adam's voice is way more powerful than mine.
Actually, I saw Austin on a Sunday night last night and almost lost it. So, I'm the Esports director at PrizePicks. I've been here 4 years. No quarter has ever looked the same as it relates to my day-to-day. We're evolving as a fantasy company out of Atlanta, and esports has played a role since inception. When you're speaking a little bit about why we're excited about it today, mostly during the panel, but just one thing that we've noticed off the hop is that every other operator in the space is sort of neglecting it, and that's what makes me most excited about my work at PrizePicks.
Thank you. Shane Saum, Director of Regulatory and Government Affairs at PrizePicks. My job is to keep us operating in the more than 30 states that PrizePicks already is. I interact with government officials, legislators, but what I'm most excited about is that really when I'm out there, we're fighting for all daily fantasy sports. You know, there's definitely a bit of a war out there right now, and I'm happy to be on the front lines of it and continue to fight so that all of you can play daily fantasy sports.
Again, my name is Justin. Justin Schoenfelder, Fantasy Elect, Fantasy Politics. What I love about what we're doing is that we're actually adding the mechanics of fantasy sports to things that you never thought about before, and politics being one of them. And I actually think that politics is the biggest sport in the world. It's something that we all play and participate in. So to be able to do that and marry those two worlds, I'm super passionate about it. So that's me.
My name is Tom Conti. I am the founder and CEO of SweetScience Marketing. Looking at this panel, I'm the OG, in this case, the old guy. So what I'm passionate about is what we are doing to help bring brands that are non-endemic to the space into the world of esports. There are a lot of brands out there that are in many categories, healthcare, financial services, automotive, whatever it may be, that are really struggling to figure out how to do this in an effective way. And that gives me just great energy every day to try and solve those challenges for our clients.
Thanks.
I'm JD Garner. I am the founder and CEO of GambleID. Been in the space for about 20 years now. So we help companies that are getting into online gaming, whether that be a fantasy sports operator, like we worked with PrizePicks before, to groups like Yahoo Sports and all the poker groups back in the day. But we help manage compliance and customer compliance and payments for the platform to make sure that they can get licensed and pass regulations whenever they are audited.
My name is Chris Ayala. I work for Banc of California in our venture lending group. We provide our services anywhere from banking, venture capitals to back startups at the earliest stages, from bank accounts all the way up through providing our venture debt solution. So from startup to exit, that's where we provide our bread and butter. But you know, within the whole realm of venture capital investing is the growth in sports betting and daily fantasy sports. So it's been a pretty hot trend that our bank has gotten really comfortable with, and I've been able to make some pretty big names over the years with one of our success stories being DraftKings. So we understand the model, we understand all the regulation that goes into it, and pretty much all they need from a banking perspective.
It's good, Justin. Yeah, here we go. Wow.
We have one over there.
Yeah.
In the middle.
All right, thanks everyone for your introduction. So we're gonna just shift that to something like, I want you to discuss the unique challenges. So we have people in this audience, some people for esports, some people for thinking more about the regulatory side, some people are trying to find a thing, or just hear from your knowledge. I want to know what is the most unique challenge that's going on right now, and what is the simplest way to try to let them know, here's how I know this is happening, here's what you can do about it, and kind of just impart that knowledge without them having to go through the same kind of pains that you went through in your respective fields. Yeah.
Okay. One of the unique things about esports is it's frequently touted as the next big thing. One thing that we found at PrizePicks is that it's already become a very successful part of our book of business. Outside of the top 3 sports leagues in the NFL, NBA, and MLB, Counter-Strike is our 4th biggest league. This has only given us the data to want to go deeper around it. However, the success of it is not in acquiring esports fandom. It's actually in converting existing fantasy players to esports, showing them the simplicity around it, showing them that kills can be just as exciting as points in the NBA, and really trying to go deep on the keep it simple, stupid motto. So what I would say is, if you walked away from today's session with one thing, is that esports is not this fringe topic of gamers sitting in the basement betting on kids. It's a very professional scene, and we at PrizePicks have seen the data on the back end to say that it's already here and here to stay.
Yeah, so from PrizePicks regulatory side, our biggest, most unique challenge right now is probably what some people in this room are, is that daily fantasy sports is a game of skill. It's one here in the state of Texas and others that we currently can operate in. And some people confuse that with sports betting. Well, maybe similar. We are a very prescripted industry. It's very narrow focused. You can only do daily fantasy sports in ours. You can't go out and say you want to put a bet on the Chiefs winning +7 or the color of Gatorade. You can't do that. You have to set a lineup. You have to accumulate statistics. So if you take anything from this, is that we are a game of skill. And my job is to go down to buildings like that pink dome down the street and explain it to 65-year-old legislators who maybe have never even played fantasy sports season long. And then we have to do that same thing with regulators. And I think what's hard for me to tell this story without telling you is that there's a bit of a battle in the industry. There are some what I'll call legacy operators. They are now the major sports betting operators in this country who are trying to close the door on daily fantasy sports operators. They're trying to go and tell regulators that they're sports betting because they look like us. But in reality, they built their product to look like ours because they were us, back in 2016. And so having to basically tell 2 stories to 2 different groups is what we're always trying to do. But I'm very proud to be at PrizePicks and tell you that they're trying to do it the right way. When I go out to these buildings and these legislators and I try to fight for daily fantasy sports, we're doing it to openly, actively be in the free market, and we're not closing the door on anybody. When we go and advocate, we're advocating for not just PrizePicks, which is the largest independently owned fantasy sports company in North America, but we're doing it for the small startups as well. And every time we try to pass legislation or work on rules, we're thinking about the small companies too, and we encourage them, like, come talk to us, and how can we help fight for you?
Are there any startups in the room? And going from 0 to 1 is really easy, right? Yeah. No, so for us, we're trying to go from 0 to 1. We're a startup, so it's trying to enter the space and create a new niche, a new market, while also trying to penetrate a highly regulated fantasy sports market, while also trying to penetrate a very kind of reclusive political market. Politicians aren't just welcoming any outsider. So there are 3 different kind of challenges that we're facing, and the way that we look at it is we want to be conducive to the environment. We want to be a good partner with everyone. So that kind of goes with what Shane said. We're not looking to crush the competition because we're the minnow in a way, but we are also looking to be a partner to those people who came before us, and realizing that what we're doing may actually set the tone for people who come next. So that's really the biggest challenges that we're facing, is make yourself known and be a good partner.
So I'll ask a question as well. How many folks here are outside the game trying to learn about esports to get inside the game? or are you all inside the game and you pretty well know it? Because I can take this from a couple of perspectives when we have this discussion, but as a marketing firm that is trying to provide counsel to all of these brands that are bringing this industry potentially a whole lot of revenue, the biggest challenge is this doesn't work like other categories and other audiences, right? I mean, they want to come in when we have our initial conversations and think that they can do what they're doing in, you know, with their general audience and just basically push that to the gaming community. And we really have to educate them. This is about engagement, not, you know, intrusion. If you really want to win, you can't be a shill in front of this audience. You have to find your way organically down into the game, and that's difficult. You know, when you start talking to advertisers about, you know, yes, it's the elusive 18 to 34-year-old male. That's one thing, because they're all looking for that. But then when you start to talk about really understanding the culture and being authentic, and then what happens below that, you're not talking to League of Legends audience the way you are to Fortnite audience. It gets really complex. And for some, they tend to back away. So for us, it's really trying to keep them excited, keep them interested, and give them all of the counsel they need to do it in a way that's going to be effective for their brands.
Yeah. All right, yeah, so there's basically 3 places that we see operators having issues and that are actually looking for innovation. And you guys jump in here, so you've seen different things, but for startups, it's always about navigating the regulatory compliance framework that happens in each state. This is different for every state. It's different for what type of game you have, right? So we see a lot of that with startups. The next thing is banking. So you know, banks definitely come in. Banking and payments kind of together. And then the third piece for startups, basically across all spaces, is gathering your audience, right? So how do you guys actually build your audience? We see numbers in the normal sports book world and fantasy sports. It's ranging anywhere from like about $120 to $170 per acquisition. So, and that's how much money you got to spend to get one customer that's going to make a deposit. So you can imagine it's a pretty difficult and daunting task to raise money and to focus on exactly how to market to them correctly. So for us, those are the 3 areas that we see our customers struggling, right? So you guys know your game really well, right? So you know exactly what you want to portray to your audience, how to differentiate yourself, how to show that you're the same, maybe some of the bigger brands that are already out there. But what you really kind of the nuanced piece is, well, how do I operate in Arizona? Well, I want to launch in Massachusetts. Okay, I want to be in Texas. I want to be in Nevada. You know, so how do I do those things? And that's where a lot of the struggles start to come. And that's what a group like all of us here and our company specifically can help you do. Help you find banking, put it together correctly, help you find customers, and help you navigate the regulatory compliance needs that you need for like a legal thing, for actually onboarding a customer. How do you store their data? So those are the things that we focus on. And when we started this company, we really thought, you know what, I want to focus on things that are not sexy. You know, marketing to customers, that's a lot of fun, that's sexy. Having a really cool game, very sexy. Making sure a 14-year-old isn't gambling on something in Massachusetts, not so sexy, but definitely required. So anyway, so that's what we focus on with people. And those are the things that we find that our operators are always in trouble with.
Yeah, and to kind of build off of what JP said, the challenge isn't necessarily on us as a bank, it's really the customers coming to us. To operate in this space, you have to adhere to the laws to a T. To be able even just to open bank accounts, to store your deposits. That's something that we have to screen. It has to adhere to the BSA Act. It has to go through anti-money laundering tests and standards, because we can't touch money that is illegal in any way as a bank. I mean, we are so regulated, right? That's reputational risk on top of just actual criminal risk. So we're one of many banks, but things that have teams that are ready to screen your legal documents to make sure you have that legal opinion, to make sure that you're operating within the laws make sure that you have your licenses, to make sure that your geo-tracking is up to par. You know, and we have a team that has seen that through and through, given the types of customers that of the bank that are in this space and are. And so we have a very deep understanding of that. And there's banks out there that, you know, it's a burden for the bank. And so there's banks out there that don't have those teams and don't have that experience or knowledge to be able to deal with this. And so they'll turn you away. So, you know, I'm glad to be part of a bank that is into the space. Personally, I really like this stuff.
Awesome. Okay, so the next one, let's move away from challenges and let's move to something more exciting. Ongoing trends right now. So what is something that you're seeing as a ongoing trend that's looking to either shake stuff up or something that you've seen bubbling that you think you want to discuss with these people? So it could be new markets coming in. It can be that something exciting has happened that has made, you know, what you do open up to more people. Something like that. Let's get a little bit more positive.
Well, I'll speak to something that we're very excited about, and that's the publisher Valve, which owns Counter-Strike and Dota. They have a very hands-off relationship with their esports section. And what that's allowed is for companies like PrizePicks to come in and put events on and tournaments on. And so we're actively in 2024 interested in sponsoring some Counter-Strike events with PrizePicks as the title sponsor, but also set up the way that we could never offer a NBA tournament with PrizePicks on the front of it. So if I was to ask anybody here if they would be interested in putting their own company on an NBA summer event where superstars could come and compete for the entire off-season portion, I think it would be a no-brainer. That's what Counter-Strike allows us to do. We were able to offer Counter-Strike for 360 out of 365 days last year. That combats a lot of the seasonality that sports betting and fantasy operators face. So we recognize that this is a completely untapped area of an ecosystem that we're already very interested and motivated to invest in. And yeah, I hope that some people in this room will attend it or watch it online on Twitch at the very least.
Yeah, I'd say some of the challenges that were answered in the first question have led to some positive innovation. You know, we have been rolling out new version of our game Arena, which is a peer-to-peer game. That's pretty exciting, something that wouldn't happen if we weren't pushed on the regulatory side. And something that our CEO will be happy to hear me repeat is that he sees us growing more into more of a sports entertainment company than we are simply just daily fantasy sports. We want to be that second screen when you're watching an esports tournament or anything, that you're watching it, but you're also looking at your phone and you're tracking everything that's going on. And we see that going in multiple ways in esports. And one thing that I liked was these partnerships that we've been popping up with. You know, we were one of the first, we are, I think, the first daily fantasy sports company to partner with the National Women's Soccer League, the North Carolina Courage. We're finding ways how we can continue to promote women's sports and put that out there is something that I find exciting. And these regulatory challenges have kind of opened those doors to us. And even here recently in Texas, we just announced a partnership with the Dallas Stars. That's our first NHL contract, and we're looking forward to see how things like that continue to grow.
I'm probably going to have a hot take here, but I might be the only person that's excited about Trump versus Biden based on and in all honesty, I do a podcast with my political advisor, and we actually think there's a better than 50% chance that one of them is not on the ballot. So if that happens, I think I'd be even more excited because that would be a real October surprise. I think for us, we're really excited in where we're going next with political fantasy sports. It's illegal to gamble directly on politics in this country, but in 2020, $1 billion was wagered on Trump versus Biden offshore, which was more than the 2 previous Super Bowls combined. So if you think people want to bet on football in the Super Bowl, I think they also really want to bet on who's going to be the next president of the United States. And we're giving you a way to scratch that itch. In the future, imagine being able to do a little prop bet action on what the vote is going to be on a border security bill. And where there might be a lack of engagement in politics, or politics is often seen as a kind of controversial thing where nobody wants to talk about it, I imagine a day where you're sitting around the Thanksgiving table and you're not arguing with your in-laws or your uncle or anybody else, but you're actually throwing down a little prop bet action to see who's really right. So That's what I'm really excited about. And I don't think we're the only ones. I think other people are really going to start applying this fantasy metric, these mechanics to other really interesting things. And I look forward to seeing what's coming next.
Well, as a marketer, I'm excited about a lot of things. I think that having advertisers actually coming back into the space, albeit in a more cautious way, they're willing to experiment. They want to learn, much different than what was happening at the late 2010s when brands were just throwing money at it, thinking that they could have an impact. I think that when I look at an esports industry that's worth $2.5 billion and an entire gaming category that's worth $160 billion, and then I look at these kind of integrations and the exponential growth that comes out of that, that's really exciting. I'm excited about having more structure around the path to pro, and the fact that we can actually start doing things now, with things like Ascension Leagues and other platforms that give us the ability to play maybe below the top tier, and actually begin to get some sponsorship down at that level and create even a stronger structure there. And I'm excited about women in gaming. I think that, if you look at esports, 28%, I guess now, are very serious competitors in the esports space. We've got some leagues that are dedicated to that growth, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity there as we look to the next few years. So there's a lot going on right now that, from a marketing perspective, is super exciting. Even streaming, right, Dean? I mean, it's like the opportunity to do the right things with streaming. Co-streaming, that opens up a wealth of opportunities that we can be introducing brands to and driving more revenue into the sport.
All right, that was good. Yeah, so actually coming off of both of those, so the two most innovative things that I'm seeing in the space right now have to do with the fantastification or fantasization of basically anything that has stats built around it, right? So we're seeing some really interesting stuff. I mean, you can now, there's like fantasy platforms specific to things like the game shows, reality TV, The Bachelor, yeah, exactly, right? So there's all kinds of stuff like that. It's ridiculous and fun. I think it's really going to press more and more groups to be able to find, hey, you know what? There's gaming and fun. There's gamification and fun built in just about anything that you have out there. The other thing that we're seeing is specific really to sports, and it affects fantasy sports and sports books alike. And that is how the big convergence of how professional and collegiate sports have opened their arms to, let's put it bluntly, opened up to the money of gambling online. So it used to be very, not too long ago, if you mentioned the word gambling or gaming and a professional sports league in the same sentence, there's basically, you could bet that the word, Pete Rose is going to come up in the next paragraph, right? Because you would think you do not want that. Well, what happened? There's a lot of money in gaming. It's opened up to mass media, so these leagues want that money. So they're really trying to figure out how to keep the integrity of their sport and actually let gaming in. And that's actually one of the most innovative pieces we've seen. We've seen state regulators, we've seen the leagues, the teams, ownership, player associations themselves try to figure out a way to create that level of transparency and integrity and keep it in the sport. What was it? Super Bowl was like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and about a week before the event happened, Roger Goodell came out and said, hey, if you're an NFL staffer on any team, whatever, you're not gambling in Vegas. You lose your job. That's it. And like that was a compliance piece that all of a sudden every operator, every group had to all of a sudden adhere to. Not a lot of warnings and stuff like that. It happens a lot, especially as more sports leagues want to protect their players. These are billion-dollar assets. I think Mark Cuban wanted to sell the Mavs for less than $3 billion. He did not. But I tell you, one of his players got popped for a parlay 3 weeks before he closed that deal. It wasn't going to be $3 billion. It was definitely be less. And so they see this as a huge risk, but also as a huge opportunity. It's brought, again, innovation into the space and how you track that.
I think since the changing of the laws to put the power in the states to legalize these sports books, we've started to see not necessarily maturation, but these sports books are now house name brands. And the venture capitalists have really hit it out of the park, taking that bet from the beginning, no pun intended. With that, the growth in these companies has followed all the American Major League Sports viewership going up, and the amount and volumes of bets has gone up. And now that's opened up a market for, to what JD was saying, the tangential ideas, the services that cater to the sports books or cater to the bettors, or the social aspect of following the handicappers and getting in that space. So, and I think with venture capital starting to kind of recover, not necessarily recover, but to start writing checks again after the past 2 years, we're going to see a lot of continued investment in that space as it just continues to attract new bettors, new players, and it still hasn't been legalized in all 50 states. So there is still a ton of room to grow, and we're going to keep seeing these records of how many dollars have been placed just continue to be shattered. So that's what I'm going to say.
So quickly off of that, and not everyone needs to talk to it if you don't feel really strongly about this, but investors is a big thing I want to talk about. I know we're doing South by, we have a lot of startups here. They're either looking for customers or looking for money or connections, right? So what I want to hear about is after, especially these last few years where venture capital slowed down, what are you seeing in the investment space, or what are you seeing that people who want to come into this space are looking for to make yourself as marketable as possible?
I don't have much to say as it relates to PrizePicks, but just on the esports side, we've always been watching this self-correction, this esports winner over the last 18 months, and I think this was an eventuality rather than anything negative. What we're seeing from our conversations with tournament organizers and teams is they're getting leaner. They're recognizing that 70+% of their revenue cannot come from sponsorships. They have to have a way to market themselves, whether it's merch or academies. They need to have better relationships with the publishers who play gods in their titles. So that's, I guess, just my 2 cents on that sort of when we will come out of this esports winter. I think by 2025 we'll be looking a lot more positive.
Yeah, I don't have anything. Just for Justin, though, if you started adding city councilmen in Lago Vista, you'd be getting a lot more investments.
Our strategy was to throw this party and charge everybody here $1,000 on it. So I think, you touched on it, Chris, and then the question is really pertinent because if you're a founder here, if you know anything about the space, fundraising has been, I think, a challenging environment. Fortunately, I'm a first-time founder, so I have nothing to compare it to. It's just what it is. But I think that the key is to be as creative as possible. So rather than chasing money, our process has been to chase partners and to create something that is an experience that people want to play and they can't get enough of. And if you do that, our belief is the money will chase us. Remains to be seen completely, but check back in 6 months, I'll let you know how it worked out. But it does seem to be working. The conversations that we're having, certainly now to your point, it's thawing out. The conversations that we started last year are now becoming real partnerships with venture firms in New York, Boston, and San Francisco mostly. So I think that's the way to look at it, is focus on your product, focus on your partners, and focus on your key metrics. And nobody will pass on investing in something that is a good business. You prove the business, you prove the need to invest in it. That's what I see.
So for us, I really think it's being able to get into dialogue with titles, teams, streamers about co-creating. I think that is it's such an opportunity rather than having us in the position where it's constantly bringing and pitching ideas to actually sit down around a table and get those collaborations going that will enable us to create the kind of integrations that just feel organic, because authenticity means everything